Let's say that you have a knack for welding and you have turned that skill into a solid side hustle welding repair business, and now you want to increase the range of it, get more customers, yeah? Sweet. Now let's say that you've done your due diligence, you've got maybe a small web page with a contact info and stuff like that on it, maybe some solid social media profiles like Facebook and Instagram where other people can also contact you. You've got it all, right? Awesome. Now let's just go on a limb here and say that you have a pretty good idea of how packages get delivered. I'm sure you do. Congratulations. You literally have everything you need in order to turn your local welding repair side hustle business into a national welding repair side hustle business. Except for maybe how to price and quote a part or deal with the customer when they're not standing in front of you. Ooh, well, I've got that information in this video. This is all about how to turn your welding repair side hustle business into a mail order welding repair side hustle business. And it's only on the fabrication series. So a bunch of people keep on asking me about how to expand their reach, how to increase their business, how to do anything when it comes to welding repairs because they're going out on their own, and man, I am super proud to see this every single time, right? Well, recently a guy from Georgia reached out to me to ask if I could repair some bolt holes on his outboard motor. It's pretty old and it just needs to be filled back up so you can tap it out, whatever the case is, right? Simple stuff. All we gotta do is ask a few questions and see if we're interested. First question I have is which model year that engine is manufactured in, which gives me an idea of how good or bad the casting is. He said it's a 91, which in my experience could be a hit or miss. Since it's a boat engine and that's usually cooled with the water that it's floating around in, we need to know if it's a freshwater unit or a saltwater unit, because I just flat out don't bother trying to weld castings exposed to salt water. Literally, it's the biggest pain in the butt to deal with like the highest failure rating on it, right? I just flat out don't touch saltwater casting repairs, ever. He said it's freshwater only. Thumbs up. So far, so good. The next thing I want to know is who manufactured the engine. I want to know this because in my years of experience, some manufacturers have really nasty castings, and I know that they will take a bit longer to do if they are part of that bad bunch. Now, if you want to know how bad they get, check out my video on the worst casting repair I have ever done. Seriously, they get really, really bad. And yeah, just look at that video, you'll see. He said it's a 70 horsepower Yamaha. Perfect. I have experience with those. I know that they're not the worst ones. I know they're not the best ones, but they're definitely more than workable. However, if you don't know anything about the part that somebody is sending in or wants to send in or anything else like that, get your butt on the old interwebs and start researching. Don't feel pressured to give a response right away or anything else like that. And definitely don't get too cocky thinking it's a piece of cake when you haven't even seen one in person or ever dealt with it or whatever the case is. Now, even though I am confident in this repair, my response was a little bit less direct, if you will, right? I said, I can definitely give it a shot, but I'll know for sure once I get to the first hole. He said, okay, do you want me to clean all the dirt and oil off of it before I send it to you? My answer was, I'll take care of that. Now, there are two reasons why I always take care of the cleaning. The first one is I will know what was used to clean it. I really don't want somebody taking like a can of brake cleaner to it or something horribly corrosive that will set my lungs on fire, put me in the hospital, or kill me. So I insist that the part is not cleaned by the customer. The second reason is because it's all part of customer service, right? Or it's all part of the service, which makes it customer service. So if the customer, all they have to do is put it in the box and ship it off to me, I'll take care of the rest, then we're good. It's just good customer service. Sounds good. Do you have a price in mind? Now, I'm confident in this repair and I should be able to do it like pretty standard like all the other ones. So I quoted the average price, which is about $10 to $20 per hole plus return shipping. Now, this is a quote. This is not a guarantee. This does not mean that this is the amount that I'm going to charge. This is not the amount that I have to charge. This is not what I'm going to go above or below. This is a ballpark that says roughly, in my experience, it's going to take about this much time to do, which means I will charge this much for it. And if the customer doesn't like that, well, they're probably going to go on their merry way. But you and I know that when it comes to weld repairs, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to know how to repair something, especially like cast, without actually digging into it. So there is that caveat inside of there once I get into that hole. The second thing is you can only see so much in a picture, right? So if the picture shows this, 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 and this, what about that? And that's the stuff that really screws you up. So make sure that when you're getting your quote together, it's got a pretty good range of about where you would normally work. It doesn't mean that it's gonna stay that way or whatever the case is. It's just saying that, hey, I think it's gonna be about this much. If your customer doesn't know, make sure you communicate that with them, because communication in this one is key. And the significance of a quote is for the customer to determine whether or not they want to pursue with your service or to find an alternative, which could be like running into one of your competitors or even finding a replacement part, you know? You never really know. You shouldn't feel pressured to cut your throat on a price, and you definitely shouldn't be a dick about it and act like the job's too petty for you and throw out a minimum at them. I mean, if you don't want the job, don't take on the job. I'll also throw in there that if the repair could not be made because the cast was crap, or there was something discovered in person not revealed in the pictures, or whatever the case is, the part would just get sent back. I mean, of course, I have to charge return shipping, and if I spent a ton of time discovering the problem, a fee for my labor will also be billed for that amount of time. But if I spent just like 10 minutes on the thing or whatever the case is, I'll just send it back, whatever, no additional charge. Think about it as just good customer service. I mean, what's 10 minutes, right? You throw it back in the box, you say, hey, sorry, this couldn't be done. But if you tore it up or you tried to do it or something was totally messed up and then you charged them for it, it's like you just charged them to waste their time. So consider, you know, there are levels that you might not want to charge for. So the package was shipped out, everything was good. About a week later, I was in Hawaii on vacation, swimming with pointy fish and trying to work on my tan when the package actually showed up at the shop. But as I mentioned earlier, communication here is key. Hey, just checking to see if my package made it today. Well, let me call over and check. I'm out of town. My operations manager says there's an Amazon box with your name on it sitting in my lobby. I also let him know that the repair was on the schedule for the following week. And as promised, as soon as I got back, I started tearing right into it, right on schedule. Now, for the most part, everything was going just fine, like any other standard weld repair. But then there was a bit of a fail. Now, I'll be honest, I tried for a moment just to ignore it, but then I thought about it again before finally deciding it's something we're gonna have to fix here. All right. Now, the biggest determining factor to stop and just take a different approach with this one was actually the backside, which is covered in this weird dirt-looking stuff. I could technically keep on punching through from the front side and hope for the best, but in my experience, I know that all of that trash on the backside is eventually going to make it worse. So just a couple of minutes to let it cool down before cleaning it back to bright metal meant that I could build it back up from the backside, which is the proper side to be doing this. But what a lot of people want to know is, because it gets confusing at this point, is do you charge for that meltdown? Do you put that labor time on this? The answer is yes, because no matter what, at the end of the day, that happened, it has to get done. It wasn't intentional or anything else like that. Nobody intentionally creates more work for themselves, right? Or if you do, you're kind of a fool. But either way, it falls under straight labor, and we'll get to the price of all of this stuff in just a moment. But with all of the welding complete, we do need to take down the welds and inspect them before giving everything a final cleaning. We have to remember that this is an engine, which means it has all sorts of tiny little holes and orifices and stuff like that that love to store tiny bits of metal. Which basically means if we don't tape all of the holes shut, all of that metal, filing, shavings, everything like that can get inside of the engine and can cause damage later on. It is the biggest rookie move to leave your work behind, especially in something like this where it could potentially blow it up in the future, which is not what the customer wants. They want it to work again, right? So make sure that you're all taped up, all your holes are covered, and make sure that you never ever leave your work behind. Now, even though this is a bit more time consuming to do in the way that I'm doing it here, I used a file and a sander, and that's it. It's a good idea to have just the small tools to isolate the chips or the workload that you're doing, because any kind of power tools and stuff like that will just fling friggin' metal everywhere. So with the tape, isolate your work with just the file, and in my case, I used a sander. Now, one thing that I don't offer with my welding repairs is machining services, and that's something that I make very clear before the customer sends a part in or drops one off here in person to be repaired. I can get it close, but if it's a critical part that requires like a perfect surface for mating or sealing, it will have to get taken care of by somebody else. Sometimes that's a deal breaker, sometimes it's not. You have to be very, very honest about these things. And if there's one good piece of advice that I can give, it's never, ever lie about your capabilities and what you can actually do or provide for the customer. So if you can't machine it, don't say that you can and don't take on the job, right? Always be honest about what you can do and what you cannot do. Because at the end of the day, it's not the end of your career or your job or anything else like that one if you can't take on the job. It just means that you can't take it on right now. There will be other jobs. So always be honest about your work. Now, the last thing I need to do before packing it up and shipping it out was to make sure it received a very thorough cleaning. Now, I'm lucky enough to have access to a hot tank parts washer, which means this job is a lot quicker and my price is therefore lower. But if you don't have access to, say, something like a parts washer, you're just going to have to spend a few extra minutes scrubbing it out by hand with cleaners and brushes, compressed air, whatever you have. Of course, you should anticipate this additional step with any kind of weld repair, especially one like this, because if you didn't put this in your quote or have it part of your quote, you're going to lose money if you don't charge for it. In this case, I only charged the 20 minutes it took to clean it. And the customer on this repair provided his own return shipping, but the package also has to be repacked and reshipped, which means that there are additional costs. Even though I'm not charging for the actual shipping itself or the price or the cost of it, I will charge for the packing material like tape and paper and employee labor, etc. So how much does all of this cost? Well, I was actually pretty close with my estimate, but I did go over because that collapsed hole from earlier set me back a few minutes. But total prep time on this was 26 minutes to get everything ready to weld. That's taping it up and cutting the sides out and everything else like that we saw earlier. The complete weld time was 15 minutes, which is just a little bit longer than what it normally takes. Actually, weld time is virtually nothing, but with that collapsed hole, it took a little bit longer. Cleanup work came out to 23 minutes, and the cleaning time plus return packaging came out to an additional 30 minutes. Now, that's a grand total of 94 minutes to do this job. My labor rate is $100 per hour, so if I take 100 and divide it by 60 minutes, we get $1.67 for every minute that I spend working. 94 minutes times 0.167, which is my minutely rate, equals 1.5 hours of work, which means the bill to the customer is $150 plus $2 in material and packaging. Now, remember when I said in my quote that it was going to be $10 to $20 per hole? Well, this came out to $30 per hole. That's just the nature of straight labor. It wasn't too far off, but it was over. But either way, if the customer wasn't super cool, I would have charged him $152 to do this repair. But I charged him absolutely nothing because he allowed me the extra couple of days to do this repair while also shooting it, so that way I can create this kind of content for you guys to learn from. So if you like this, give me a thumbs up, drop me a comment down below, share it with your friends. It really helps that whole YouTube algorithm thing out and all the rest of that good stuff, so I can keep this content coming and maybe make a few bucks to keep more content coming. So that's all I've got for this episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. As always, I'll see you guys on the next round.